Howdy, Drewbies. I just wanted to give you a heads up that this will be part 1 of 2. We ran a little long on this episode, lots of fun tidbits to share. And so part 2 will be available next Drew's Day. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to How Do You Drew?
This is a Drew Barrymore podcast brought to you by thedrewseum.com.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Anne.
And we are here today to talk about something really fun. I'm excited. Are you?
I'm very excited. I think this is an important thing in Drew's career. I mean, obviously.
Oh, you think?
Maybe a tad.
I bet
maybe
she barely remembers it.
Oh, probably. She probably thinks it was 50 years ago. Sorry, Drew.
It's going to be an inside Drew. Running joke, I think.
We do love you. But so, what year did you film this movie?
I know. Do you really know?
And this one she might know.
Yeah, she probably would. And this is our first time talking about any part of her filmography. And I think it's a great place to start.
I think so too.
Maybe if we'd used the best place to start, that would have been the best place to start, but her real directorial debut. This is her feature directorial debut. And of course, we're talking about Whip It. Woo!
Woohoo, Whip It!
Okay, but we have a lot to get into before we start talking about that. We have a fun oopsie daisy. This is me going down another rabbit hole. So I don't know if you read my notes, but I'm excited to share this with you.
I skimmed it, but okay. I'm excited to see the detail.
Yeah. Okay. So when our last episode, for some reason, we both questioned if it was true. So it's not like we made a mistake, but I have the true story. We thought that the venue where she first met Eric Erlandson by throwing up on his shoes might have been the Viper Room. And I still don't know why we both had that in our heads.
We must have just wanted to fill in a gap. I mean,
maybe.
And that's what I pictured the outside looking like. I don't know.
Strange. Okay. But I went and did some research and found out where she really said it happened. And it's a place called Jabberjaw. So then I had to, of course, research Jabberjaw. So it's in LA. And it was a coffee house and music venue. And it looks really cool. Like, it was very funky. I could totally see why Drew would enjoy it there. And a lot of bands played there. In fact, in the Wikipedia page for it, it mentions That Dog, which is the band they were seeing that night when they met, which I thought was cool.
Okay, that's cool. Can I ask, is there anyone notable in That Dog, or were they just like a LA 90s band?
I think just like an LA 90s band. But the singer from it does I don't know if you watched Yellow Jackets yet, but oh my God.
No, I have not.
Oh, it's so good. But she does the theme for it, and it's really good. It's
that's awesome.
It's really awesome. Definitely recommend. Okay, and I guess Nirvana played really, really early shows there, and Hole used to rehearse there. So it was very popular place for music. So Drew used to go there a lot with Eric, even after they met. So I found all kinds of places that mentioned her going there. I even found one where somebody was performing and they said that they saw her in the crowd trying to be incognito in a brown wig, which I thought was really
cool.
Funny. Yeah. And then I found out that there's a book about it, and we have got to try to find out if there's photos of her inside, because she does a quote in it. There's a thing from her in the book. I know. So I'm going to read it really quick. It's kind of long, but this is such brand new information to us. I thought this was.
Did you say the name of the book?
So it's called It All Dies Anyway. And it's just a history on the location. Okay. So she says, I can vividly remember walking up the narrow, dark path between buildings to the back courtyard that would then lead inside Jabberjaw from the back. It was a big, dark loft space, very raw and downtown feeling, with an old refrigerator that you could just grab your drinks out of. It was a very exciting and dangerous place. On any given night, at the very least, I could witness a slice of musical culture, a chance to see what new indie bands were up to in the early stages of what they would eventually become, And every once in a while, I would see a band that I knew in my heart would change history. It was always exciting, no matter what was going on there. Isn't that cool?
That's super cool.
But I'm like
what
dying to know if there's photos of her in the book.
what year did this book come out? And like,
you know what? I didn't take a note of that.
that's okay. It's something that can easily be Googled, but
you're right.
But I'm super interested in the book now. And
I
I'm
know.
wondering like what the location was, if it's anywhere near other venues I've been to, because I spent a lot of time at Los Angeles. Okay, I spent a lot of time at Los Angeles venues, so I feel
it's like a weird, like deserted space. Like you can look at it now; it just looks like a weird, like empty, like any business could have been in it. It doesn't look like anything special from the outside.
Cool.
So.
I mean, I've been to shows that are in like venues that don't look like venues, so I'm just curious, like how much it'll feel like if I see pictures of the place, feel like places I've been, if not like if I've been to another place that
similar.
I don't know.
Yeah. So that's something hopefully we can find out about, because I'm like, how did we never hear about this? Like I was like, what the hell? She's quoted in a book and we didn't even know.
I love that you found this.
Thanks.
That's really
took some
cool.
time, but I was like having a lot of fun looking it up.
That's so cool. Another thing that we wanted to follow up on here, we mentioned briefly that Drew seems to kind of lift up people that work for her, and then we mentioned Chris Miller. And I don't think that we mentioned that Chris Miller is now a showrunner for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, we didn't, but that's a big deal.
So huge deal. Huge deal for him. So he, and Drew is a good friend of Jimmy's, so I'm sure that there's a connection there, but we're so proud of Chris Miller and how far he's come from being Drew's assistant.
I mean, just think about that footage, that E special that featured him, like,
and the reason I recognized him.
Yeah, the
and
reason we know him.
That. Like, literally, when I met Drew Barrymore in 2001, I saw Chris Miller walk by and I said, Chris? And he thought more than once when I've encountered him, he's thought that he knew me from a set. Like, I think he just assumes that that's where he knows people from.
You just have that
and I'm like,
vibe.
no. I'm like, no, I know you from this special on E. Like, I was a little bit embarrassed, but anyway, we'll talk about other embarrassing encounters later.
Anyway, that's a great thing. I'm glad we brought that up because it's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to read the nice email that we received?
Yeah, sure. So here's our new You've Got Mail.
You've got mail.
It's from our friend Christian, who we correspond with a little bit back and forth on Instagram. And he says, I just love the fact that you guys made a podcast about Drew. I've been a fan of Drew for 2 years, and as a young fan, I wanted to listen to stories of longtime Drew fans like you two, which include how you became Drew fans, just like in the first episode, and your Drew encounters. My Drewiedom introduced me to you two. During that time, the Drewseum page was still down, and I was looking for archived pages in Wayback Machine to see some older layouts of the page.
That's so cool.
Then, I know, that's really cool, and it's crazy that it's when it was down, because we didn't have a huge amount of time that it was
He totally
down.
could have been like, well, forget this and moved.
Yeah, exactly. Then when I saw you two on the Flower Film Studio back in 2011, cue Drew Encounter section of the page, you guys inspired me to try meeting Drew in person. Maybe one time I'll meet you two and meet Drew together in New York. Keep this podcast up. I want to listen to you guys, and maybe other Drew fans would too.
Yay, that's the hope.
It feels like this is kind of like, not only is it like, here's where you see what I'm talking about, like leading people to certain parts of our page, but it's also like, this is really sweet. Like,
yeah,
they went out of their way to, I don't know, to like seek out and point other people to our content, which is really nice. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, Christian. That was really kind of you. And don't forget, you guys can send your stories, send your questions, send your personal encounters with Drew, whatever you want to share. Tell us we were wrong about something. Send it to howdoyoudrewpod@gmail.com. All right. You want me to tell you what's new with Drew?
Yeah, let's hear what's new with Drew.
Okay. So they're still filming segments for the Drew Barrymore show, but there's nothing that I really think is worth mentioning right now.
Okay.
I just want to say that she just guested on this show. It's called The Shop, and it's from a company called Uninterrupted. I guess it's LeBron James and somebody else I can't remember. But it's basically just like a panel show featuring some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment, and they're all like sitting around in a barbershop sort of setting, which is fun.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's about, I think it's like 35 or 40 minutes. So it's really cool. Obviously, it doesn't just talk about Drew because it's like a panel and everyone's kind of asking each other questions, but it's totally worth watching. I really enjoyed it. I took down a couple things that I wanted to mention that happened in the show.
Okay.
So spoilers if you're going to watch it. And if not, you just enjoy what I'm going to tell you. So they start the story out of context. So I don't know if she's talking about like being on a movie set. For some reason, I thought maybe she was talking about Santa Clarita Diet, but I have no idea why I made that connection.
Okay.
But she says that it was like the end of a day and she decided to go into her trailer and smoke some weed, which I was really surprised she was that open about that because I think she doesn't normally even want to admit she ever does anything, right?
Yeah.
So she said she went in there when she was wrapped and she got high, and then a knock came on the door and they said that they rearranged the schedule and she had to get out there and start filming right away.
Oops.
So that was kind of like, whoa, I'm okay, cool.
I would love to know what she had to
Yes.
film. Like,
She
I would love
said
to see it.
She said the line that she had to say, and I like didn't make a connection. So maybe if you watch
Okay.
it, you'll know what it is.
Okay.
Then I also thought this was hilariously like such a Drewism. She said she was describing her dad, and she said that he was basically Gollum meets Oscar Wilde on drugs.
You know what? I would love to collect Drewisms, and I feel like maybe we should start doing that.
I mean, that's a really good one. I sent you that bow tie one the other day that was cracking me up. Yeah, so I was just like, oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. And then one other thing was that she like, she starts getting really emotional because she starts talking about how she's just so hard on herself. And she starts crying and says how she's like just now learning how to forgive herself. And she like basically, she's like, I had to basically like parent myself. And yeah. So it's really cool. Totally. And it's just her and these like other dudes. Like she's the only female in the room. But they all like seem to really respect her and admire her. So
cool.
Yeah, so
I'm
check
looking
that out.
forward to checking it out.
You can watch it on YouTube, and I think it might also be on HBO.
Cool.
All right. You got anything else before we really get into our meat of our episode? Sorry, I'm just not gonna be able to
I guess
drop
we'll
it.
go ahead and get into the meat of the episode.
We're here to talk about Whip It. Yay!
Woohoo, whip it! We're big fans. I mean,
Ugh.
this is gonna be clear as we show our excitement towards this. I'm sure that we will talk about films that we're not huge fans of. This just happens to be
Yeah, we'll
one
have
that
to
we are.
eventually. I know. Well, this one, like, so we both just rewatched it, and every time there's just like, and the music is a big part of it for me, but I just like get like these really good feelings when I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the music plays a big role in that?
For sure. I feel like that's the case in many movies.
True.
And it's not really something I feel like if it's good, you don't really notice it unless you like make it a point to notice it. If that makes sense.
It does.
Like,
but you know what that just made me think of? How I don't really like riding in cars with boys. And part of what I hate about it is the score. Like I despise
the music.
The score.
The music does take me out of it a bit. Yeah, I totally see what you mean. Yeah, if you notice the music too much, then it's clearly not fully fitting the scene. Like if it seems like it's like, I had a housemate earlier this year who would watch like bad TV, like Lifetime or Hallmark kind of TV shows.
Okay.
And the music was always like a little bit too loud and a little bit wrong. And it felt, and I'm serious, and I feel like there was something about like trying to force an emotion. Like you would hear this music and it's like, oh, someone's gonna die, or they're gonna reveal that someone's sick, or they're gonna, like someone's about to say something like they're in love. Yeah. Anyway, so I feel like with this movie, the music really beautifully fits each scene.
Yeah, and we will talk a bit more about that because it's just a big part of the movie.
Yep.
So I'm gonna read the IMDb description, but I thought it could have been a lot better.
Okay.
So it says, in Bodine, Texas, an indie rock loving misfit. What? Where is that Like, no, but okay. Finds a way of dealing with small town misery after discovering a roller derby league in nearby Austin. But the last part's okay, but the first part I was like,
But
what?
also, it like I remember there was a point when I was watching the movie, where I was thinking like, yes, is a small town, but it doesn't seem like it's too far from Austin. Like,
Right, because she can ride
it
the
seems
bus
like,
there.
yeah, it seems like somewhat of a suburb.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not a small town. It's just like, I don't know, small town misery.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think that's really what she's like miserable about, but okay.
yeah. But yeah,
so,
indie rock loving misfit. I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of their way of trying to sum up what it is to be.
like, oh, she has blue hair in the beginning. She must be
No,
an
but
indie rock.
she's you know what? She's alternative.
Yeah, exactly.
Alternative to what?
Yeah. And I guess we'll just quickly say we'll get through like the process of the filming and when it was released and all that, but it
Yeah.
did come out in October 2nd, 2019.
Whoopsies. We actually meant 2009, of course.
So God, it's been almost 13 years, which
What's a trip?
it was so I was super pregnant with Mila when I went and saw the movie, and I was like
of course.
addicted to HGTV at that time. Like I couldn't get off the couch and stop watching it. And I remember my sister came over to like for us to go to the movie, and I was just like, oh, I can't turn this off. It's like weird. So I always associate it with that.
That's really funny. But I also love, this is just something that I think when we were talking about like having a grip on time, I think that one thing that helps me remember things about my life is remembering things that happened with Drew.
Oh, for sure.
Or vice versa.
Yes,
like remembering
both
things
ways,
about
yep.
Yeah, like yeah. So I think that Drew not having I don't know, somebody else's life. Yeah, I bet she probably has a better grip on time maybe now that she's got her daughters. But I'm not sure. I don't know. We have to think about. She probably would remember things like I was pregnant when this came out. Like
yeah,
that kind of
probably.
thing.
You know what? When the day comes that we finally have her on the show, we should do a segment where we quiz her. When did this happen?
Oh my God, I love that.
She'd probably hate it.
We can be like, you know what? I'm sorry, Drew, but this is just something. This is the way we've wanted to tease you for years, and here we go. Lightning round.
It's a plan. All right, back to the show. So did you ever read the book that this is based off of?
No, did you?
Yeah, I did. I got it probably like a few months before the movie came out. It's called Derby Girl. It's by Shauna Cross, and Shauna was an LA Derby doll, and she actually used the name Maggie Mayhem. So that's where Kristen Wiig's character's name came from. Cool. And she adapted the script too, so that's cool. And I found a quote that said that Drew pushed her during revisions to make things more raw and open-ended. She wanted to feel, especially with the relationship between the mom and daughter, she really wanted it to feel that way, which successful.
Can I ask if you remember if there were any really like big differences between the book and the movie?
Gosh, I really don't. It was so long ago. I will say that Pash, the best friend, is Indian, and Aaliyah Shawkat is not. And I didn't think that they were ever implying she was, but I watched a deleted scene, and like the jerky guy at school like says something about her tasting like curry. It's just like, I'm glad they cut that out. But I'm like, well, that's a little weird, like a little okay. But that's like the only main thing I remember. But I'm sure
there was more. Like a relationship element in the book and that kind of stuff, or do you know if that stuff was
really
added?
Don't remember. That would have been a good thing to find out, but
that's okay.
We're here to talk about the movie.
Really? I thought we were here.
That's what my plan was.
But I brought on Shauna Cross. Welcome.
Okay, so originally, I guess Drew and Nancy were just gonna produce this, and Drew started realizing she was like really fighting for the integrity of it and like really getting worked up about it all. And she had what she calls her clueless I love Josh moment, where she realized, I have to direct this.
Oh, I love that she described it that way.
I know, multiple times. I remember she said it in a lot of articles and interviews.
So I didn't remember that, but I love how like that reference also feels obviously like you wouldn't get it if you haven't seen Clueless.
Right, but if you have, you totally do.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Clueless, go ahead and watch it. But
Yeah, where have
basically
you
there's
been?
a character who is sort of her stepbrother.
Yeah.
It is her stepbrother.
Ex-stepbrother.
Oh, that's right, ex-stepbrother, who she realizes she's in love with. I just ruined the movie for you. I'm sorry about that.
Shit, it's only been 25, 30 years.
Anyway, that's really cute. I love that description.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's very specific.
Yeah.
And if you, I don't know, Clueless is great. That's really cute. And I think it's really kind of cool to think about Drew. I didn't remember the fact that they were just producing it at first. And that I just assumed that she was involved as director early on.
Yeah,
but maybe
that
it
makes
still was
sense.
early on. But I love that she was like, wait a minute, I can be more involved with this and make it even more my
This is
own.
what I've been like working for my whole career.
So cool. I'm picturing that like little clip of her as a kid going like,
oh,
I want to be a writer, a director,
a producer, a singer,
and an actress. Aw.
She did it all.
Can we see if we can pull that clip?
Yeah, I have it on our Instagram.
Oh, cool.
So I can totally pull it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then I remember this really well because I feel like she talked about this in like everything during the time that they were promoting this, that Drew identified really heavily with the ideas of being your own hero and finding your tribe, especially the finding your tribe.
Oh, totally.
And
and the be your own hero, I think, was why Ever After was so important to her. I think that's where that like really sunk in for her as like
good point.
One of her goals.
And this is something I'm sure that will come up again in our podcast as we talk about like Drew's really strong friendships but finding her tribe, like she's really felt like she found her family outside of her family.
Oh, she really did.
so like you know, being your own hero, like taking your own life by its balls and then like finding your tribe and like looking for, you know, kinship where there's not, I don't know, it's a beautiful idea and I love that she really embraced that in this. She also talked about being affected by the mother-daughter story. And she said, I believe she, as in her mother, will see the film. I believe she does feel pride in me. I used to pull a lot emotionally from all the stuff with my family, but I did not do this movie to cleanse myself of the mother-daughter debacle that happened in my life. I have been much more objective about my childhood and my relationship with my mother in these last few years. I used to be more attached to all that. And then in a different article, she says, my mom and I have yet to work it all out. I don't know about it because how do you talk about something you're confused about?
Yeah.
And that's so intriguing because I mean we've now like talked about her relationship with her mother.
Yeah. We did talk
on
about
multiple
a lot.
occasions.
You're right.
And I mean I can't say that I really know what she said about her mother on her show.
She has talked about her a little bit. It sounds like they're maybe still kind of corresponding mostly with like the written word.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really get the sense that she's like in Olive and Frankie's life and that maybe that's a conscious decision on Drew's part. So I mean that's always been like her kind of rough spot. Do you remember that MTV special when Never Been Kissed came out? Oh my gosh, it was one of my favorites. And she's like saying how she's like zen about her relationship with her dad, but like she talks about her mom and she's just like, ooh, and she starts getting like really uncomfortable. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh,
I don't remember.
It's really good. I can't like if I thought about it more, I could pull the exact quote from my memory, but you can tell she's just like, ooh, like
I feel like I might be wrong about this, but I feel like in Little Girl Lost, or maybe this is just like a kind of common sentiment that people tend to like feel positive about the parent that's not there and negative about the one that is there.
Oh, and she's definitely said that.
Yeah, and I feel like don't you feel like she kind of like says that in Little Girl Lost a little bit, like she feels like her mom like had to be there in the shit, and so she like feels a little bit of I don't know what the word is, like not sympathy, but kind of like I know my mom had to be there dealing with me,
right?
And so
I definitely said that, and I believe weirdly to bring up Writing in Cars with Boys again. that she kind of made that connection in that movie because her character is the mom that
Yes.
stays while the dad, right? And that's kind of when she reconnected briefly with her mom.
That's right.
So it's
That's
just a
right.
fraught relationship.
That's right. And I feel like, wasn't there even an article around the time of Riding Cars with Boys about them like kindling their...
Probably. Yeah.
I might be thinking of something like an article with Jade, but I can't remember the context. Anyway.
And I also remember she wrote, you know, she's like 6 or whatever, but she wrote a script. I'm going to use quotes around that she presented to Steven Spielberg when she was little. And it was also about a mother-daughter relationship.
Aww.
And she has said like having girls, like she's multiple. In fact, she just said it again in that the shop thing I told you about. But she always says like having girls is like her karma. Like that's like what everything led to. Like, yeah, it's very interesting. So I can totally see why she loved that aspect of this movie and wanted to explore it.
Yeah.
So, and then another thing she said, which I think this is so perfect. I love this. And I found this in multiple articles. So she must have really liked it too. She kept saying that she collected everything from her whole life into a metaphorical piggy bank and crashed it all over the floor for this film, which I totally feel like her vibe comes through so strongly in this movie. Like, yep, you totally succeeded in crashing that piggy bank.
But it also makes me curious, like, other than like a music video, or I don't know, maybe there's more than one, but she hasn't directed another movie.
No, yeah.
So I'm curious, it's kind of that idea that they say about like when like a band releases their first album, that it's an accumulation of their entire career up to that point, and then when they do their second album, it's all fresh, you know, like,
yeah.
That I wonder
yeah.
what the next film would be. Like, it just makes me really curious to see like what the next story she feels strongly about telling, it, if there is something, or what kinds of things she would put from her life into the next film. I don't know.
I love thinking feel like about that.
I don't know. It's that's really exciting. I haven't really considered Drew directing again, but I imagine she will.
I think she will when her daughters are older, because I think it's such a like time, like she did nothing but work on this movie for like a year straight. So I think she'd have to have
true. That'd be really hard.
Yeah. And you know, she said that she never would have guessed that her first movie to direct would be a sports movie. She's not like a sports person.
Yeah.
But then she's like, but wait a minute, I have always been attracted to girls who do action and have team spirit and camaraderie.
Totally.
You know, like in Charlie's Angels, obviously.
Yep. And I you know, I was wondering about the idea of the girls in Charlie's Angels being tough. And then I remembered that like in the first film, maybe in the other, they don't use weapons, right? And I was just wondering about like strength and sports and these kinds of things where you're just using your body as like as your sport. Do you know if it was her idea not to have guns in Charlie's Angels?
I remember it was like a really big deal to her. I remember an exact like interview on the red carpet for some weird event at the end of '99, and she's like, no guns, like it's the like cowardice thing to like pull the trigger and end someone's life. Like that's not what we're doing. So it's a real cool connection there, I think.
I love it. And not that I wouldn't love if she had been involved in like the League of Their Own show or something like that. Like not to say that a different sports situation where it's not just their body, and sure they have the skates, but there's something about like the strength of the body and the mind. I don't know. It's just like a wonderful thing to imagine that like her training for these things. We know she trained really hard for Charlie's Angels. She trained really hard for this.
Oh yeah.
So
it's really cool. A couple more like pre-production things is that she storyboarded for months with a gentleman called J. Todd Anderson, who worked with the Coen brothers a lot. I thought that was cool.
Cool.
And then kind of what you just said about the training. So the reason she put herself in the movie and on the team was because she didn't want to be on the sidelines being like, no, I know it's terrifying, but get out there and do that jump or whatever. Like she really wanted to be in it with them, of course, right?
Yeah.
And they did skate camp for like, she said weeks. I don't know. It could be. I mean, they all do an amazing job with their skating. So it totally could have been a lot of training.
I felt kind of silly, like while I was watching the film, I was like, oh, I feel like that all of the actors were doing all of this physically. And then like of course there are stunt people, but I feel like the way they use them is pretty seamless. Like there are a lot of shots where they're shot, like you can tell.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That you can tell that it's the actor skating. Like there's no question. So it's kind of incredible just the physical prowess that it took for them to do this, and
it's
taking
really
on...
cool. It does like elevate the movie in some way, just seeing them actually out there doing these amazing moves.
Yeah, totally. Another little tidbit that is really cool is, and we've seen evidence of this, is that the Flower Films office wall was covered with movie stills, kind of like a what do they call that?
Like a mood board?
Mood board. And I feel like, you know, obviously Drew is very inspired by cinema. She had that thing, the show she did with like TCM.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's funny because what you're going to mention, some of these were on there, but go ahead.
Oh, cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So she had certain things that she wanted to use as inspiration for the tone and the look of Whip It. And some of the screen caps that she had on the wall, or sorry, movie stills, were from Bad News Bears, Slapshot, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Breaking Away, Foxes, Pretty in Pink, Saturday Night Fever, Terms of Endearment, and Rebel Without a Cause. And sadly, I think I've only seen one of these.
I've seen
two.
Like
I've seen
3. So
I've
only
seen Pretty in Pink and Rebel Without a Cause. What have you seen?
Yeah, so I've seen Pretty in Pink, but I saw Slapshot for some reason after seeing Whip It and knowing it was such an inspiration. I thought it'd be fun to watch, so I think I got it from like Netflix on DVD. It was so long ago.
Cool.
And then so like you just said, when she was on TCM with the Essentials, she actually showed, or her picks were, one time she did Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which I barely remember, to be honest, and Rebel Without a Cause, and that was the first time I'd seen that, embarrassingly enough. So yeah, I was like, oh, these are like long, and like Terms of Endearment I think is like a very mother-daughter story, so that makes sense. And like interesting, like the only one I hadn't heard of before was Breaking Away, so I looked it up, and Daniel Stern's in that, but like way younger, and it's like about a guy, I think is Dennis Quaid, who wants to like be a competitive bicycle athlete, and like him and his friends. So I was like, yeah, makes sense, get it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I would love to see the picture again. I know that we had some image where she's in front of it, right?
Yeah, I think there was like an interview done because there were definitely some featurettes done that appeared like online. They're not on the DVD, sadly. But I definitely have like a weird screenshot from some sort of interview where she's in front of that wall.
God, it kills me to think of like online content that we weren't able to save.
And that's just gone forever.
There'll probably be many times on this podcast where we'll just be like
lamenting.
Yes. Things that we thought would just forever be online or forever be available. Like, okay.
I do think, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but Omar, who has done video stuff for her for years and years and years. He did, do you remember this? Like he followed her around when they were doing all the promotional stuff to all the different cities when the movie came out, and he did like a cool featurette on it, and I think it's still on his Vimeo. So yeah, thank God. We should probably find a way to save it before it disappears.
I mean, I'm not remembering that right now. I'm sure I thought it was rad, cool. And then just
cool. I'll find it and put a link on the show page, but hopefully I can find it and do that. Omar.
Crossing my fingers and my toes.
Right. But getting back to sort of like the pre-production and filming. So they filmed in 2008. I think they started in the summer. And most of the movie is filmed in Michigan, even though it doesn't take place there. Maybe there was like a tax benefit or something. But they do film some of it in Austin, Texas, which, you know, is really cool because Drew really wanted to feature some of the landmarks that go along with the characters. And I noticed you have notes about one of those later on. Yeah.
Yes. So we can get into that a little bit later. It's just always interesting. I don't know if a lot of people realize how many things are filmed as other places. How common that is.
When they film and it's supposed to be Vegas and it's not, it's like so blatantly obvious. Do you remember me getting so mad? You probably don't. There was an episode of CSI and it was supposed to be the Strip, And they were at
Okay.
Universal City Walk, and it was like so
No.
obvious. And I think I wrote like an email. 'Cause I was so mad about it. Like, you're not
Wrote an
even
email like
trying.
to the production.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's funny because it's like something like a TV show. They probably are thinking like, no one's gonna know, no one's gonna care. Some things are very blatant, and some things not so blatant.
And obviously, when you live in the place, like maybe there's people that live in
Yes.
Texas who are like, this doesn't look anything like Texas.
Or vice versa,
Or
live
vice
in a place
versa.
that gets used as like a place that's filmed in a lot. So like South Pasadena in California, where I lived for almost 10 years, was used as kind of like anywhere USA a lot.
Yeah,
like that's
I could see
that's
that.
kind of like, but because it's sort of like a nondescript sort of downtown, or the
Right.
houses have like a classic look to them. It's just kind of a funny thing about filming that, yes, of course, like they'll do things like establishing shots, like kind of like the landmark type things, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, like no one's gonna notice.
Yeah. You
But
know
then
what's so funny? I'm having like a little light bulb moment. I have a feeling that Michigan really does have tax benefits because, and
I'm
again,
sure.
this is me being like so pedantic and like such a like stupid snob about Scream, but Scream 4 filmed in Michigan and tried to pretend it was Northern California, and I like cannot accept it.
And this is it's certain places become really common for filming for that reason. Like Atlanta, Georgia is really big for filming right now, and it has to do with a tax benefit thing for the it benefits the city, but then ultimately it benefits the production.
Exactly.
Because it's really unique, but we're kind of getting a little bit in
Hollywood is a business.
It sure is.
And then I thought this was cool because this also, like, I had taken this note, and then this also just came up on the shop, this exact same thing.
Cool.
So she did it. She said she never really liked to say like action or cut because it like was this kind of weird, like, okay, all of a sudden now you gotta, it just felt unnatural.
Yeah.
And she just liked to keep things rolling. And in the shop, she said that she learned that from Steven Spielberg on E.T., that it was just like we were just rolling all the time. So it felt more real.
Oh,
Isn't that
that's
cool?
really cool. And I feel like this kind of sentiment lends itself to like improvisation.
Yes, that was another
you know,
thing she said.
Yeah, which like, of course, that's so cool when you capture a moment that maybe wasn't in the script, or maybe it's a different play on something because you felt like you could, I don't know.
Gives you
I'm
more
trying
space.
to imagine what that's like to edit. Like what it's like to edit from things that are not cleanly cut and like
now that you're editing our podcast, you know how much work it is. Well, that goes perfectly with the next note if you want to read it.
Okay. So one thing that definitely would have helped when she was editing is that Drew took notes on every take while they were filming so she could go to her book. I wonder how that worked when she was actually in the scene.
I know. You're right.
But either way,
ran over and written it down.
But either way, and I remember this because I can picture a lot of the outfits that she was wearing, but there's a lot of paparazzi shots of her going into the editing studio in 2009. Yeah. And there was a lot of like her wearing like really kind of like punk
wacky outfits.
Yeah, like, but really cute. So I think we should definitely share a couple because I think it shows kind of like the mindset that she was in. Like she was probably like so in it that she was like, I want to maybe feel like the character. I don't know. Because don't you think the outfits, like, they were wacky but stylish?
Oh, yeah. They're really fun. Like, 2009 was such an interesting style year for her. Like,
totally.
She went way outside the box that year.
Totally.
But yeah, I'll find a couple. It feels like it was just like every week there was pictures of her walking into this editing bay or wherever it was.
Totally.
So I think, it's cool because it really shows how she was like in every aspect of this movie.
Yep. The last note we have about kind of like production is that she didn't direct from a monitor. And if you don't know, that's kind of like the way a director or a usually a director, but like a DP could also be using this. So it's like their way to see what the shot looks like through the camera. So instead she kind of says she was like up close doing shooting, meaning she was like watching, I guess, from the sidelines rather than watching from the monitor.
She said like that sometimes maybe the actors didn't like that because she was like all up in their business.
Interesting. Yeah, because when you see images, like behind the scenes images of like, either a DP, meaning director of photography, or director, which is sometimes I think the same person, depending. But if they're like behind the camera or behind a monitor, they're not looking you directly in the eye. But that would be a different way to like connect with your actors. So
I could
cool.
see why she would prefer that. That feels more her.
I think so too. Even though like as like a, you know, like photographer,
yeah,
I could see her loving.
True.
I don't know. It's really interesting. Whereas like I think if it was me, I like the idea of being behind a monitor or being behind. Like if I was a DP,
you'd want to see it.
I'd want to see what was going to be on the screen.
Okay.
But cool. I think there's also something about, I don't know, we keep getting in the weeds about like film stuff, but I think there's something about trusting your DP.
Okay.
Right? So she might be
like
kind of more focused. Yeah, she might be more focused on the performance and less on the visual. I mean, it's both.
Yeah.
Obviously, like how a performance.
She probably had her storyboards and she's like, here's what I want it to look like, and I know you've got it. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm actually curious to see who her DP
I know.
was.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Anyway,
you should look it up while we're talking. How about you look it up while I get into it? So we got to talk about the cast. This is definitely like an ensemble piece, and it's while you're watching it, it's just like, oh my god, they're in it. They're like, what a cast, right? Like I love this cast. And before we list them, we got to say that who did the casting, because these are longtime Drew collaborators. So the casting was done by Justine Baddeley, who has been Drew's friend since she was like a teenager, and she lived with her like really, really long time friend. And then Justine always used to, maybe still does, work alongside Kim Davis Wagner, who is Tamara Davis's sister. And she has been doing casting all the way back to with Drew, all the way back to Gun Crazy, which makes sense because Gun Crazy and Best Men, Tamara directed those. So she has a history with these ladies, which is so cool.
I love that. And I think we did mention in a previous episode that Drew tends to stick with crew. Like she loves working with people. If they're doing good work, she's like, stick with me.
Well, that's going to come up a lot as we go through this list of cast and crew, because there's a lot of repeats.
So can I interject the cinematographer was?
Yes, please.
So this is really interesting. It's actually a cinematographer who has worked with Wes Anderson quite a bit.
Yes, I knew as soon as you said cinematographer, I'm like, somebody who has done some notable stuff. Yeah,
Robert Yauman. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I'm just kind of going to list a few. So the Darjeeling Limited. We have Yes Man, which is random, but it's a fun movie. Bridesmaids, Moonrise Kingdom, The Grand Budapest Hotel, the Ghostbusters film from 2016.
So he's worked with Kristen Wiig quite a bit.
There you go. Huh. And then the most recent thing that's listed as far as films go is The French Dispatch. So once again, a Wes Anderson. So
cool.
She had someone she could trust. Yeah. So that kind of might answer why she was able to, like, she didn't feel like she had to look at the monitor.
Good work. I like that.
Really cool. That's really cool.
And just real quick, I just want to mention that Justine and Kim did the casting for almost every Flower Films movie, like starting with Never Been Kissed, and they did all Charlie's Angels and quite a few other ones as well. So I just think that's really fun. I like those
super cool
connections.
Super cool. And then we'll get into the cast a bit. As we mentioned, there are a lot of really incredible actors, and we wanted to just kind of like make sure we feature them a little bit. So we have Elliot Page as Bliss, and we wanted to kind of acknowledge that we will be referencing Elliot Page as he, they, though the character of Bliss we will probably be referring to as she, her. So we want to just make sure that from this point on, we apologize if we make any mistakes, but we want to acknowledge that.
Right. We just really want to be respectful of where he, they is at and try to get it right. But Bliss is a female character, so.
Absolutely. And then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, his performance as Bliss is just so good. Like, so quiet a lot of times and so effective in like the smallest ways. There's a certain scene I'm going to mention where like Bliss just nails it. Like you just feel everything that character is feeling.
Absolutely. And I'll say something else about the character of Bliss and Elliot Page as Bliss is like what you're talking about, sort of that quiet thing.
Yeah.
Is there are some expressions that say so much. And I think I know which scene you'll be talking about, but there are expressions that say a lot. And I think it tells you a lot about the character, but maybe also Elliot's process. I don't know. It's really incredible. And I think Elliot Page is an amazing actor.
Right.
In many things. And I'm so glad that Drew was able to get Elliot for this role.
I know.
I think it's
such good casting.
I can't imagine anyone else in it.
No.
I mean, obviously that's how it is when you've seen a film. But I'll kind of we'll be talking more about Elliot as Bliss, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm sure we will.
Then we have Alia Shawkat as the best friend Pash. And it seemed like we were seeing Alia Shawkat hanging out with Drew at a couple events after this. And then she's also in the Best Coast video that Drew directed.
Yeah, they definitely were like palling around quite a bit. In fact, I just had a memory. Remember when Drew's photos were featured at which museum was it? And we went to the event.
Oh, it was MoCA. Wait.
MoCA.
MoMA? I'll figure it out.
Okay, well, anyway, and one of the photos they show is Evelia. Like, do you remember that?
No, I didn't remember that. Yeah. But do you think we have a way to show it?
Yeah, it's on our website.
It's MoCA, by the way.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles.
So they definitely like hung out quite a bit.
And just to kind of make it clear what this event was. So, well, I don't know what more we can say about it, but a series of Drew's pictures were featured at sort of like an exhibit, but it was just an outdoor exhibit of the pictures being projected.
Yeah, and
like
some bands played.
There weren't prints. Yeah, and interestingly, I can't remember who the band was, but one of the band members ended up coming in and getting some framing done with me later.
Oh.
It was really random, but I was like, where do I know this person from? And then it was like literally from that.
Oh my God.
Was the band maybe called I.O. or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's totally right. Anyway. In fact, I know we have a little flyer from this on our website if we really want to. But
we could share it. It might be kind of fun since we're mentioning it. But yeah, let's continue with the cast.
Okay, so her Bliss's parents are played by Daniel Stern, who's like, Home Alone. Like, to me, that's like a cool thing. And like, I was thinking about it later. I feel like the way he is as a dad in that movie is like totally what Drew probably always would have loved to have had. Yeah. Right? Like, he's such a good dad. And then we have Marcia Gay Harden as the mom. And I think she's kind of antagonistic at the beginning. Like, you don't really like her for some reasons, but she's very real and very like she becomes, I don't know if I'd say empathetic, maybe, but like you definitely start to kind of understand why she is the way she is.
Yeah, totally. And I think that both Daniel Stern and Marcia Gay Harden are amazing as her parents. Like, I feel like from like the moment that they kind of show the characters, whether it's their expressions or the way they're delivering the lines, like you start to understand them. Yeah. And I do love that Daniel Stern's character is so truly himself from like the beginning. Like he doesn't, and Marcia Gay Harden's character clearly has like things that she's going through and they show this evolution.
Right. And she's kind of really like more image and like you kind of see like, oh, she secretly smokes, but she doesn't want her kids to know. Like,
yeah. Totally.
And then it's her real life daughter. I hope I'm going to say her name right. Ulala Sheil. She plays the little sister, which is,
and I didn't know that was her. That was her actual daughter. I'd forgotten that. It's really cute.
She's adorable.
So adorable. And I'll go ahead and introduce some of the Girl Scouts. Woo! I almost said Girl Scouts. We've got the amazing Kristen Wiig.
Can you do this as Jimmy Fallon's character when you're introducing? No, I'm kidding.
Kristen Wiig as Maggie Mayhem. How was that?
Oh my God, she's so good in it too. Like, I feel like this is a more understated performance from her. Like, the only time she's really, to me, like laugh out loud funny is the part where she's talking about having crabs.
Yes. So there's something funny about Kristen Wiig as an actress. So I love her. Like, I've seen a few of her films, and I'm trying to think of what the one is called, where she's a twin with
with Bill Hader.
Have you seen that?
No.
and I can't remember what it's called, but I feel like she as an actress, like, and her style of comedy is that way. Like, I feel like not on Saturday Night Live, but
Right.
I feel like she tends to have this very, like you kind of said, understated way where like she can suddenly kind of have this like not serious but earnest.
Yeah, earnest.
Kind
Ooh,
of-
that's a perfect way to describe
But
her
and
in
like
this movie.
genuinely earnest.
Yeah.
Like I think the movie Bridesmaids, there are some
Oh,
like
for
really
sure.
genuinely beautiful moments in that, but it's primarily a comedy.
Right.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
like the scene where she takes Bliss to school and she's kind of like, listen, like you're not really being fair to your mom. Like
Yep.
That's such a great example right there.
but then she says like if my kid did that to me, I'd break their legs.
Right.
And then she's like, and that's funny.
Yeah.
But she's great. I mean, clearly we're fangirling over Kristen Wiig right now.
Well, and we
then-
should mention that so I don't really like most Drew impressions, but I think she's pretty good at it.
And I'm thinking about Gilly. What was Drew's character on Saturday Night Live? It was Gilly and
Gigi or something. She was like an
It was.
Italian version.
Gigi. Okay, I'm gonna want to pull a picture of that.
Okay. Got it. I'm on it. And then
Okay.
Zoe Bell as Bloody Holly. And I love Zoe Bell. I watched a documentary about her. I think it's called Daredevil. And it's about her stunt, because she's a stunt woman, and that's how she
Okay.
started. So she was Xena's stunt woman on Xena.
I've
Warrior
forgotten
Princess.
that.
Yeah, and then Kill Bill, she was Uma Thurman's stunt double. And Quentin Tarantino liked her so much that she then in Death Proof, his movie, she plays herself, which is so weird. She's playing Zoe
Oh.
Bell, the stunt woman, and she's just so kick ass. Like she is so cool, and I think she's probably the only person who maybe didn't have any kind of stunt double at all in this film.
That would make sense.
She
That would make
can
sense.
freaking do
She's great in
anything.
this. She's so
Yeah,
great in Whip It.
She's just so like, she's got such a like bright, like, I just really enjoy watching her.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great casting right there.
Yeah, totally. And then we've got Eve as Rosa Sparks, which I remember when they were like, maybe when I saw the casting stuff, I was like, Eve,
Yeah.
like I was really like interested because I think I had not known her as an actress. I knew her as a
Right.
singer,
Singer,
right?
rapper. Yeah.
And she's amazing in this.
I know.
Like,
She's so
she
cute.
does a beautiful job. I think that the way that all of the Girl Scouts work together is beautiful. Like I wouldn't have kind of changed anything.
Yeah, they work together, but they're different, but not so
Mhm.
different that it's like phony. Like you're like, yeah, these people would be friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Such a good group. Okay, and then obviously we have this person. Do you know her, Drew Barrymore? Have you ever heard of her before?
Tell me more.
Okay, well, she plays a character named Smashley Simpson. And of course, I geeked out when that was announced because I've been Smash forever. Like, that's been, my dad's called me that forever. Other people call me that. So I was like pumped because she's never played any kind of Ashley before. So that really excited me. And I still love it. And I mean, I guess this was pre-Instagram. So when I made my Instagram, I used Smashley as my screen name, and I use it as a screen name all over the place.
Did that inspire your
Yeah.
screen name? Okay.
Yeah.
But of
So it was
course
like,
I knew
it was
you
my
had been called
name,
Smash.
But
Yeah.
it, like, I really pumped it up in my world.
Yeah. I love that. I was wondering if this like wait, now I feel dumb because I'm realizing that Ashley Simpson is a
Yeah.
play off of like
Yeah.
duh. And but I was thinking about Lisa Simpson because I remember
'Cause
there
Drew
were some
loves her.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Drew loves Lisa Simpson. If that inspired the name of the character at
It
all.
was probably she wanted a combination of Lisa Simpson and me. So that's why she used that name. That makes perfect sense.
Duh. Why would I even ask? I'm such a
Okay.
fool.
But do you love her performance? I love her performance in this
I
movie.
mean, I love it for many reasons.
First of all,
So-
it's nothing like anything she's ever done, ever. Would you
And
agree?
it's nothing like anything she's ever done, and it's also like extremely silly. And I feel like some of the choices maybe that were made were like her wanting to kind of play out this funny thing, because I think there are
Yeah.
some things that feel very like almost like a 95 version of her. So, okay, so things that do feel like a 95 version of her, and this is kind of getting into like a specific scene, but there's the funny thing where she's like, it's my fiance.
Yeah.
And then she like pretends to punch him in the nuts. Yeah, like something about that feels very like silly, kind of like slightly tough, kind of a Drew that like we only hear about, or maybe like feels like more like a personal kind of thing about her. And then she's like kind of seems like she's like a stoner. She's always late.
She's
like
for sure a stoner.
Yeah.
Like I love when the coach says, if the play was called Bong Water, would you pay attention?
Yes.
She doesn't have any of her normal mannerisms in it. Like even her laugh, she totally changed her laugh in this movie. Like she's doing more of a like, ha, 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 like it's not what she normally sounds.
That's a good impression. I was like, I don't remember the laugh for some reason.
But yeah, I love it.
I mean, we can talk a little bit more about like her look later, but like it's really fun. It's I think it's a good way for her to like maybe be acting and directing. Like maybe it was like just for her to be able to be silly, come in and like wear a neck brace and say a funny line.
Have a bloody nose.
It doesn't feel it doesn't feel half-assed, but it feels like it would come naturally to her to act this way. Like it almost seems like it is kind of like caricature of like a stoner kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
she's good. It's so cute. We can talk, like I said, we'll talk more about the looks later.
Okay.
And then you mentioned the coach. The coach is played by Andrew Wilson.
Yeah.
He plays Coach Razor. And this is the 5th film he's done with Drew.
I think that's more than anybody.
Maybe. Are all the films Flower Films productions?
Yes.
So Never Been Kissed, Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, and Fever Pitch. And then you have a note here as Flower's Lucky Charm. Is that something that they've described her as?
Yeah, Drew's called him their lucky charm. Isn't that cute?
That's so sweet. And also, like, I can't help but kind of ponder about when Drew would have met Andrew Wilson, because she did date Luke Wilson.
Right. And you remember
brother.
She's told stories about like going to their house in Texas for Thanksgiving. So, well, I do want to say that I really love him in this movie. So in all those other ones, he has like very tiny parts, like almost borderline cameos, but he has a big role in this movie. And I find him so appealing. Like he's I love Luke too.
Yeah.
Owen I have no feelings about. But I just find Andrew to be like, so you just like really feel for him in this movie. There's so many times I was like, oh, why won't they just listen to him? Why are they so mean to him?
Yeah.
And his look is like he's like jean shorts and rollerblades and like surfer kind of dirty hair. Oh my God. I love it. And then there's the other 2 teammates. They're called the Manson sisters. And they were inspired by in Slapshot, that movie that has 2 characters called the Hanson brothers, and they're hockey players. And they're introduced beating up a vending machine, just like these girls are in the movie, which is just a cute little Easter egg.
So the next one we'll introduce is from the rival team, the Holy Rollers, the amazing Juliette Lewis as Iron Maven.
Ooh, you just love to hate her.
I was just gonna say, the note that kind of had when I was going through the film is like, she's such a good villain.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh God, she's such a bitch. Like I was just like, oh my God, like she's evil.
Yeah, like, oh, why are you so mean?
Yeah.
I love that she has that, like, I mean, it takes her a long ass time, but she gets that like, all right, I got some respect for you. I guess you're kind of tough. Like at the end, she's not like a villain till the very last second. Like, maybe she's not exactly nice at the end, but she's like, all right, I can respect you.
Yep. And we have a little note here that Drew would play Van Halen's Jump for her to rev her up. Yeah. And I love that so much.
Can you totally visualize that? Yeah.
Yes, I can totally visualize it. I can visualize specifically like that being good to like rev up somebody. I don't know how it would kind of rev up somebody to like be a villain, but how it would rev them up to like get skating hard. Yeah. Like it sounds really fun, and I love to imagine like Drew actually being like, "Come here, I've got your song ready." You know, like I don't know. It's just really fun.
And then we have Jimmy Fallon not looking like himself, which is kind of fun.
And not acting like himself.
No,
either.
not at all. So he's playing the kind of like the announcer at all the derby matches, and his name is Hot Tub Johnny Rocket. And he's kind of a slime ball. And like he's always like hungover. In fact, the funny thing is, I don't know if I've ever told you this about Jason, my husband. He's really bad at recognizing people. Like, it makes me laugh so. He thought that Marcia Gay Harden was Sandra Bullock. I'm like, honey, like I get a lot of joy out of it. But so he like came in when I was like kind of half, like he wasn't watching it with me. He like stepped in the room, you know, and he heard Jimmy's voice and actually was like, is that Jimmy Fallon? Like just from his voice.
Oh,
like, honey, good job.
Oh. But you know, there's something funny about like, you know, we want to like be like, what do you mean when somebody doesn't know like somebody's face? But it's also just like maybe not. Is it more about him being bad at recognizing faces, as in like your husband, or is it about him like not being familiar with actors?
Just not being familiar with actors. And I'm like, that's okay. I can take that role in our relationship.
You're like, I'm there. It's fine. I've got us covered. Yes.
But we got a note. So I don't know this was ever 100% confirmed, but I definitely think it's true. Originally, Justin Long was cast in this role. And I could see it. Like they definitely could pull off like a similar vibe, the two of them.
Yeah,
I think.
Sure.
But they broke up, and either I don't think Drew said like leave the movie. I think he probably opted to not do the movie, which can't blame him.
Next we have Landon Pig as the love interest Oliver, and he is very cute as the character. We have some
very that like trashy teen boy that you just like can't help but like how charming he is.
he's not as handsome, but he kind of has like Jordan Catalano vibes a little bit.
Yeah, or he's just
is that giving him too much credit?
I think he's got a little more personality than Jordan Catalano, but he still has that like that kind of just like, damn it, I know he's bad for me, but I kind of am into him anyway.
Yeah, like you don't question their charm, or maybe you should be questioning their charm.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of things that we have in our notes. One thing was like wondering if Drew ever had a fling with Landon.
Do you remember
Pig.
this?
No, I don't remember. So were there photographs?
There's some photos. And there were rumors. So there's definitely pictures of them like on set, like hanging out and being kind of close. But then there's like at least one in some tabloid, a picture of supposedly them like kissing at like a nightclub or something, or a concert or something like that. So it's just kind of funny, like
I feel like it might have just been like Drew at the time was like really embracing kind of like feeling young and feeling, you know, because I think there's part of like that like those couple of years, like I feel like when she was with Justin, it was a lot of like really, I don't know, like really like I don't know what's the word,
youthful.
I don't know, just having youthful, having fun,
going.
So there might have been something about that,
shows and festivals and dressing all crazy. I think this is definitely that time.
Not that has to be reserved for someone who's young, but just like kind of playing with that youthful kind of fun way of being.
Can you, I don't remember this note you have about her discovering him.
Okay. So I remember, and I don't have the source, but I recall that Drew was like browsing. Would it have been MySpace at the time? Yeah, I guess it would have been MySpace at the time. Was like browsing, like, you know, like she wanted to find an actual musician to play Oliver. And I think she discovered him on MySpace.
That, I bet you're right. If you remember that, I'm sure that's
true. I kind of remember it. And then I'll just say, I've met Landon twice. The first time is very embarrassing. The second time is kind of funny. So the first time I was in South Pasadena, I mentioned that I lived there for a while. I was at the post office and in walks Landon Pig. And my recollection is he was wearing like army textured pants. What do you call that?
Cargo?
Not cargo,
but
like camouflage pants. I don't know why I remember that. And I'm like, I really felt like I should talk to him, because it feels like somebody that's like not he's not like
he's
too
not getting
famous.
stopped on the street all the time.
No, but it was like clearly him. But for some reason, I decided like not to go up to him right away. I waited outside. And I think he might have said I said hi. And then I said, "You seem familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" So instead of me just being outright, like I knew who he was. I'm not like, it was embarrassing.
It's really
But
cute.
basically he's like, and he said like, "Oh, I've acted in some things." I'm like, "Oh, like what?" Like I knew. I was just waiting for
I
him.
would have heard of.
It was really dumb. But he listed like he was in I think The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh, okay.
And then he said "Whip It," and I was like, "Oh, that's it." And then I was like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of Drew Barrymore." And then I said
And
to
then
him,
you said, "Did you make out with her?"
and then I said, "Didn't she like discover you on MySpace or something?" And he said, "Oh yeah, and he said like, "How did you know that?" Or I was like, "Oh, I just remembered it." But I like asked him that, and he confirmed
Okay,
it.
cool.
So, yeah, and then the second time I encountered him was
So
like
random.
probably a year later. I saw him a couple times at the farmer's market. Never said anything. Thankfully, he didn't remember me. He must not. He must not have a good like. He doesn't remember faces, or he doesn't remember people who like are very embarrassed. And anyway,
You're killing me.
hi Landon, if you're listening, I'm sorry. On the train once, I was wearing a Radiohead shirt. And it's a Radiohead shirt with like, I don't know if the logo is like a bear, but it's like a logo. And he said, "Cool shirt." And I think I was wearing headphones at the time, so I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And he said, "Cool shirt." And I was like, "Oh, thanks. I've had this for a long time. It's like one of my favorite shirts." And then he said, "What's your favorite Radiohead song?" And I was like, "I'm not sure. Let me get back to you." And then we were on the train for like a couple of stops.
Okay.
And I think I said to him, interesting enough, it's something that's in this movie.
Oh, I was gonna say, did you pick the one that's like his last like good scene?
Yeah, so it's no surprises.
Yeah,
and
that's funny.
I just realized the connection.
Oh my god!
And then
hilarious.
He was like, "Cool, good choice." And then we parted ways. So we both got off on the same station, and then we parted ways.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Anyway, the last thing I'll say about Landon Pig is that there are his actual songs and he's actually singing.
I love his song in the movie. It's like used during a montage and it just totally works. It's like
it's
got
really,
a real
it's really
upbeat,
nice.
fun. It's a good one.
Yeah. And I don't think that I've actually like listened to any of his other music,
Yeah,
but
me
I think I would like to.
Okay, do it.
But
you owe him that much after what you did to him.
But anyway, Landon's really fun as his character. You can tell that he's not like a seasoned actor, but I think in that way it actually works because it feels pretty natural.
Yeah,
there are a couple like interesting deliveries where it feel like I can't think if there's one example where I was like, that doesn't seem natural.
Okay.
But I feel like he does a great job as the character Oliver, and I haven't seen anything else he's been in, but glad to hear that someone I embarrassed on the street
might have made out with Drew.
Might have made out with Drew. Lucky him.
Okay, and then there's a couple like really, you have to be really in the know cameos in this movie. Okay, Harmar Superstar. I'm not sure what his level of fame is or like how many people are familiar with him. He's a singer. And his like introduction, so he's the coach of the flight attendants, which is one of the teams that the Girl Scouts play. And they definitely shoot his introduction in a way that's like, you look at who this is. Do you agree? Because they like the camera like comes in and he's like turned around.
Sort of.
And then he like turns around and it's like, ta-da!
Yeah, I don't think he's I can't gauge his level of fame either because I know him from Cobra Snake, which is Los Angeles based photo blog that was around.
Era.
Yeah, this was around like in the early to mid. I think it might still be technically around, but it was like really big in Los Angeles.
Jason was on that site. There's a picture of him on there. I know.
Oh, funny. So were Jolena and I.
Yeah, I remember.
But my early memories of him are him like always kind of stripping down naked whenever he performs.
Yeah.
So he like or gets down to his underwear.
Underwear.
I have no idea how well known he is, but you are right. The way that's this shot, it kind of is like, ooh, like it feels very like yeah. And I think he's great. I think he does a good job as that character.
And he, I guess, is was a friend of Drew's. Like he definitely hung out with Elliot Page and Alia Shawkat and all them. Like that was sort of a crew. So that would be why
I know that there's at
in there.
least one instance where Drew and he went to like a flea market, maybe the Pasadena City College flea market
I don't
together.
remember that. Okay.
Or
We'll
Rose Bowl.
Fun. Okay.
Casual hang.
I'm sure we have the pictures. I'll find it. And then so this is one that like you wouldn't know if you weren't a Drew fan. This is like super random. But so she used to work with this gentleman named Kent Cummings, and he is the shop clerk when Bliss and her mom are buying shoes, and then her mom sees the bongs and thinks they're vases, and he laughs at her.
Yeah.
And says they're great for tulips, really. But he was a wardrobe and personal costumer for Drew for quite a few movies at this time. So he did He's Just Not That Into You, Grey Gardens, which is so cool, this, Going the Distance, and Big Miracle. And I think he was kind of like her personal stylist for a little bit at this time too, which, no offense, but I feel like I like to style a bit more than what she currently does. Is that a polite way of saying that?
Different vibe.
Different vibe. Well, she's in a different place.
Different place for sure. And what's funny is that when I rewatched this, I was like, oh my God, I can't remember his name.
Okay.
But I knew who he was right away.
Yeah.
Same with the next cameo, which I'll go ahead and introduce, which is Brent Kyle. And it's the person who Pash is making out with in the shower at the party. And he worked with Flower for a few years. He was a creative executive, and he was Drew's assistant and graphic designer on this, interestingly. He also designed her Breathe tattoo that's on her arm.
So do you remember that?
Yes. And I feel like there was something that was said like thank you in the same font. I don't remember what that was.
Yeah.
Like maybe it was on his website, I think.
Yes, on maybe like his Facebook or something.
Yeah. And then and the current Flower Films logo is the same kind of like open font that I'm pretty sure was designed by him as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty
really
sure
interesting that he was put in this. I wonder how Kent and Brent it's funny.
I know.
I wonder how Kent and Brent ended up like being put in, but it was a fun kind of thing. Like you said, like no one else would know.
Yeah.
Unless you were like now, if you were a fan now, you would
never know that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm sure that they were photographed with Drew. Like there was a reason that we knew, but it was really kind of fun. But they've both, I guess, since moved on to other things. But
I love just
it was
those
fun.
kind of little secret.
Me too. And I'm so curious how it ended up happening.
Yeah, it's fun.
Hey Drewbies, if you didn't hear my announcement up top, part 2 will be available next week. We'll see you then. How Do You Drew podcast is brought to you by Ashley and Ann from thedrewseum.com. Our theme song is by our dear friend Matt Costa. Thank you for listening and see you next time.